Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I'll worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I'll worship your holy name. You're rich in love and you're slow to anger. Your name is great and your heart is kind. For all your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I'll worship your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come, still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I'll worship your holy name. Sing with us. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I'll worship your holy name. Yes, I'll worship your holy name.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome. All right, grab your Bibles if you would and turn to Isaiah chapter 5. Boys, you have Bibles? Say amen. How many boys don't have a new Bible yet? One of my new white margin Bibles, a good one. Who does not have one? Raise your hand. I need a head count. 1, 2, little 3, little Indians, 4, little 5, little 6, little Indians, 7, 8, 9. Raise your hand if you don't have a new white margin Bible. Nice one. That I bought you. 1, 2, 3. Oh, now the hand's going. Is he going to make me pay for it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Woo! Okay, I need a case or two. All right. Turn to Isaiah chapter 5. You can probably turn this down a little bit because I am not quiet. Proverbs chapter 22 as well. My mind is spaghetti today. I'm normally pretty organized in thought. So does my wife. Not. But today, I feel like spaghetti. So, I'm excited to be here. I came down a few weeks early than I was supposed to after my surgery because I longed for thee. But just don't touch me on this side of my body, we'll be fine. Amen? I got my gallbladder out a few days ago, and I guess I'm just not tough. If this is, you feel like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs when you're in a building full of preachers. I got more preachers in here than I got anything else. If you're a preacher, please stand up. If you're one of our preachers, please stand up. Pastor Ross, Pastor Mike, stand up. You're a preacher. Boys, look around. I need you. Come on, preacher. Come on, Billy. Everybody get up. Get up. Now, Pastor Dave, stand back up. I got to have your participation. Jeanette probably does. All right. Now, where are you going? Where are you going, Rev? The old man. All right. Now, Pastor Russ, now I want you to think back. When did you preach your first sermon? What year? Ready. Watch, boys. Pastor Russ.
81.
1981.
67.
Sit down. 1967. Are you listening, boys? Can you count to 67? Pastor Dave.
78.
1978. First sermon. Brother Bill.
89.
1989. Reb.
76.
1976. Go ahead and sit down. Thank you, gentlemen. I am the young pup here. I started preaching in 1982. So I got a bunch of guys here who every word another preacher says, they think of how they can say it different. That's how that works. Amen. But the honest truth is, guys, you're surrounded by guys who, yeah, they've been preaching for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, this book. And yet they fish, they hunt, they shoot, they can build houses, they can chop down trees, they can weld, they can build Bass Pro facilities, they can buck bales. You with me? My problem when I was your age is I didn't know Christians were men, so I didn't want to be one. Okay? Because all I saw was sissies.
Right.
There was a church full of women, and then a few sissies that they drugged to church with them. And I was so, as a kid, I hated that. So I'm like, I ain't going to be a Christian. I want to be a man. And then I met a man. The guy that led me to Christ was a firefighter in Birmingham, Alabama, before he got saved and became a preacher. Okay? Try that on for size. Try their test. All right? Gentlemen, you can be a man and you can be a Christian. And that's the only real men that I think count.
Amen.
Those ones are men for God.
Amen.
You with me? You're in a man camp. That's what I'm going to make you do. Your faith and your Christianity is up to you. You with me? We have no access to your heart. We have no access to your will. In fact, God will let you go to hell before He'll make you go to heaven. Even though He loves you more than anybody on the planet, including your mommy and your grandma, He will let you go to hell if that's what you want to do. Because He will not cross the threshold of your will. So shake your fist at God if you want. Shake your fist at us if you want. I'm going to make you man up. But I want to inspire you with these men to become a Christian man. An honorable Christian man. But that's your choice. Grab your Bibles and turn to Isaiah chapter 5. I preached this message 10.5 years ago, and I didn't plan on ever preaching it again. I've got other, all of my best illustrations kind of find their ways in other sermons, so you may have heard some of the things I'm going to talk about. But when we came to Missouri to start this particular branch of our ministry here in this location, we've done this for years and years elsewhere and had kids in our homes and taken in other people's kids, but when we came here, it was 10.5 years ago, and I was invited to preach in a church in Kansas City. And this is the message God gave me. And I didn't have the property yet here. I didn't know I was coming to Couch yet. It was 1 month away before we would buy that little farm you high schoolers live on. And God gave me Isaiah chapter 5. When you got to make a big move, you got to do something as a Christian, you want to know, what am I supposed to do? He's supposed to speak to you through this book. Okay? You're not going to hear any voices from heaven unless you're on LSD or something. You're going to hear from God through that book.
Yep.
You with me? And if you don't read it, you're never going to hear from Him. So you're going to be wandering in the dark, getting lumps on your forehead for the rest of your life. But I was praying and I said, God, what do we do? What do we do? Where do we go? And He gave me this verse. And it was in Isaiah chapter 5. So there's so many of you that I don't know yet because I've been down again, sick with surgery. But I'm up. I'm good. Moving back into the house. Life's over. Amen. No more fun. Because Mama teased you. I'll try to compensate for you.
But there must be one adult on the property.
She will be, I guarantee you, she will be the only adult on our property. Amen? The rest of us will have fun. Now, except the ground troops. All right. Proverbs chapter 22 is a verse you know, but let's go to Isaiah chapter 5. And honestly, if I was looking for a verse to tell me to go do something, it wouldn't have been this verse. This is one of those kind of slaps you out the side of your head, and He just kind of showed me something that I couldn't get away from. It was Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 7. Now, this may not say to you, go to Couch, Missouri and start a boarding school. Okay? That's just how God works. This is what He said to me. Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 7, for the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah his pleasant plant, and he looked for judgment. That means people making good decisions. How many of you guys saw a lot of that in high school? No. If you make good decisions, would you be here? No. All right. Okay, church, we see this all the time. He says, I look for judgment, but behold oppression. He says, for righteousness, but behold a cry. So that's what God's looking for. He's looking down and he says, I can't see any judgment. I can't see any righteousness. And then here, woe unto them. Now here's the verse that got me. Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place. He's describing a city. How many of you guys come from the big city? If you're in a city of 20,000 or more, 30,000 or more, 50,000 or more, we don't even know what those are here. You guys are from the big city. You're in a place where house is next to house. How many ever live in the projects, where houses are stacked? You guys know what I'm talking about. Dallas and Houston and New York and LA. And, woo! House to house to house to house and field to field to field to field. And that's the description of a city. And we already know who started the first city, and his name was Cain. We don't have a lot of farm kids coming to Master's Ranch. It happens once in a while, but if you were raised on a tractor and with cows and you bucked bales all your life and you were out in the fields, you don't usually get to go to a boarding school. You didn't have access to everything everyone else has. Now that's changing, and I don't want to get sidetracked. That's changing with the advent of the internet and the way drugs and all this stuff has now made it to rural America. But for the longest time, farm life was your safety net in America. It really was. And the cities is where all the culmination of darkness and sin has typically been. Whatever high spots they have. Access. And he says, woe unto them. So God says, I'm not into the whole city thing. You saw what he did with the Tower of Babel when a lot of people gathered together to all have one plan and all get on one focus. He says, I don't like it. Cain builds a city. God didn't like it. Okay? The Garden of Eden, the best I understand from the Word of God, was 1,500 miles square. It's a pretty big place. Now he says here, woe to them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. Therefore, Oregon County, Missouri, the backside of nowhere. Now, no offense to our Oregon County people, which I am now a part of, because to you this is home. But to my boys, this is God-forsaken nowhere. Okay, can you hear an amen? Amen. Where am I? I can't even run away. Don't do it. Don't. Oh, you're Speedy Gonzales. Now I know. Okay, don't do it. We'll get you. But my hat's off to you trying. I probably would have too. All right. But you are in a place where you can be alone for a little while. Just taking away your phone was like taking away crack from a crack baby. Amen? Amen. How many of you guys have with phone withdrawals? Your thumbs are doing this in the night. Because you just can't live without your technology. So we take you away. And so God says, I need you to get a place where you can get some kids alone in the earth. And that's where this thing started for me. Turn, if you will, to Proverbs chapter 22. Now this is a verse that all of my backslidden Christian kids will know well. So I'm going to ask you to testify that in just a second. Proverbs chapter 22. Proverbs 22. Here's the verse. If you know it. My poor son over there has probably heard this 1,000,000 times. Because it's a promise that every Christian parent holds on to like a lifeline, like a lifeboat of the Titanic. They love you more than anybody on the planet. And those who know the Bible hold to this verse for you. All right, let's read verse 6 together. If you know it, say it with me. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I don't know how many parents I've prayed with that are holding that verse, that are terrified at the same time, whether it's true or not. How many of you guys stand up if you heard that verse before coming there this morning? Stand up if you heard that verse. You know that verse. You've heard it. All right. Stand up. You've heard that verse before. All right. The rest of you kids are not. So about half and half. Thank you. Sit down. So you guys know, your parents have said this many times, preachers have said this many times, that your parents or someone is holding on to this verse for dear life. I tried to do right by my kid, is what it's inferred. I took him to church, I read with him, I prayed with him, I tried to lead him to the Lord, I tried to teach him right from wrong, and God, you said if I would do the right thing, that someday they'll come back to us. Now what we've learned anecdotally, that means from experience, I don't have a real systematic survey of it, but anecdotally, we've found that our kids who leave here, who got saved, got right, got things fixed up, and then they fell off the wagon and did wrong again, there's usually a 5-year turnaround. Are you with me, youngster? 5 years. How old are you? 10. So you're with me till you're 18, right? No, I can't believe it. There's about a 5-year turnaround for kids that fall off the wagon. If they survive, and that's my caveat. I just buried Caleb. I buried Connor. With me? I buried Nick. They didn't survive the turnaround. Nick, if his mom was watching, I love you, Patty. And I love your son. Nick was headed here, back here. He'd gone off from the ranch. He got saved. He got right. What a blessing. He left the ranch. He got off the drugs. He was in Chicago, heroin. Bad deal. That kid did good for a couple of years. And then he tripped, he slipped, he fell, and he called me up and said, Pastor, I need to come back. I need to get some things fixed up. Can I come home for a while? They call this home. You don't even believe that right now. But I got 600 kids that call this home away from home. You won't hate us when you leave. You won't. I won't let that happen. You might hate me, brown shirt says, weak! But not when you leave. And Nick called me up and says, Pastor, can I please come home? I've fallen. I'm screwing around with heroin again. I said, sure, come. Talk to his parents. He was coming. What, Friday? Saturday? And the night before, he had one last bit of dope that he was going to boot up for old time's sake and be done. And that next morning, his mom found him in bed, dead. He was headed the next day here. Had his head facing the right direction. We buried him. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So what we're speaking about is spiritual momentum. Now, maybe you don't understand that verse. Some of you don't know. What's that mean? If you do right with your children when they're little before God, then he says, you will see them come back. Now, whether that verse is a promise or just stating a fact of spiritual momentum, I don't think you can say. I'm not sure you can claim that as a promise and God's a liar if it doesn't happen. I think he's describing what happens. If you do this, this will happen. And that's generally the rule. For instance, let me give you an example. How many of you guys, let's see, you don't know spiritual things, so let's go with scientific things. How many of you guys know what some laws of motion are? You know what a law of motion is? Okay? Somebody give me one of the laws of motion. An object, first law of motion, Newton. An object at rest tends to stay at rest until acted upon by another energy or force or whatever. Number 2, an object in motion tends to stay in motion in the same direction until acted upon by an opposing force. All right, what's the laws of thermodynamics? Somebody, come on. Liverpool, come on. You finished high school. They don't know about thermodynamics in England. Actually, that's what they invented. Huh?
The first one seemed about created and destroyed.
Neither. Good job, boy. He's not as strange as you thought. Yes, matter energy can either be created or destroyed, only changes. Like ice becomes water, becomes vapor, right? Except at absolute zero, which is the third law of thermodynamics. At absolute zero, entropy stops. And number 2 is, there is always entropy in a closed system. So, here's the deal. You've got certain laws. Gravity. How many of you guys have ever chucked a rock and all of a sudden as it left your hand, you went, oh, it's headed for a window. And as much as you wanted to will it back, you couldn't get it back. I've done this. I did this. I threw a rock through the mayor of my town's window. And as much as you will it back, the law of motion says it's going to keep going straight until it hits the window. When your parents started raising you right, the love, the discipline, the training, the correction, the support, the communication, the church, the prayer, the Bible, the feedings. And they did all this. It created a momentum in your life. And that verse is saying that if you will do all the right things and you will set this in motion, by the end of his life, you have free will, so you can do a lot of dumb things in between, but by the end of his life, he's going to come back to that. And we rely upon that with all that we have. I can't tell you how many times I prayed that for that boy right there. My son. Now, his big brother, he got cut short. 27. So what? Is God wrong? Absolutely not. Now, I'm saying that for this reason. I got a message this morning that I want to reintroduce Master's Ranch to you, and I would subtitle this, Why We Do What We Do. And I realize I got church people here that are, by the grace of God, we love you, and I'm glad you look in on this with us. But if this thing going on here doesn't bless you and your children and your parenting and your grandparenting, then you're not watching very closely. These guys are not the dregs of society. Okay, these are guys with caring, loving families that are sacrificing everything they have to save their mostly church kids. Okay? This isn't a house full of drug addicts and people living under bridges who send their kids here. It doesn't happen. Got me? Well, except for Joe. No, his dad and me are becoming pretty good friends right now as we miserate and commiserate over Joe. Listen, the fact of the matter is, as the twig is bent, so grows the tree. I see my mother move my illustration.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. You're my mother. You can do whatever you want. Amen. I was looking for bent trees this morning, and I found some at Walmart. You guys have seen these things before, how they start these plants like this, and they twist and bend them, and pretty soon they become a great big tree, and they all grow together, and it looks like a great big Gordian knot. Right? You've ever seen a tree that somehow a rock had laid on it just wrong, and it kind of grew up, and it went like this, and it went like that? And it's just a weird-looking tree. It's got permanent disfigurement because of something that happened while it was still a young, tender plant. And the saying, a guy named Alexander Pope was the first one to mention it. He says, as the twig is bent, so goes the tree. Or so grows the tree. You with me? That little baby back there is a really green tree right now. This junior high group, they're still pliable, but they're getting hard. High school, chop them down. It's getting good. The wood's starting to get hard because you're more men than boys. Right? 13, 14, 15 years old, you're supposed to be young men. 17, 18, you're supposed to be able to go fight and die for your country. You guys are not soft anymore. So really, this is the emergency triage right here. How many guys are 17? Raise your hand. God, help us. And I mean that respectfully. What do you do with a 17-year-old who's waiting you out? You got to pray for a miracle that God softens and breaks your heart. I sure can't. You guys are getting pretty hard. The wood's getting pretty solid. You've already been bent by life. Oh, divorce? Does that not bend kids? How many of you guys are a victim of divorce? Some are in your family, divorce. Oh! Wasn't that one of the suckiest things that ever happened to you? Watching mom and dad split up? Can't tell you the buckets of tears I've cried over that. It's horrible. Then I can go on with the list, and I don't want to. I don't want to depress you, but I mean everything from sexual abuse and child abuse and drugs and alcohol and crime and there's a lot of forces chipping away at your bark and bending your branches when you were young and tender. Right? Poor Bryce. How many of you guys remember poor Bryce? Bryce. I love Bryce. And that kid is a blessing here. But we put him. They did. They put him right back in Chicago. God bless him. That poor kid. Are you there, Bryce? I love you. Watch us. There he is. He ran the streets of Chicago forever. There was a lot of twisting and bending and forming. And a year here, if you're unwilling, we'll do nothing to change that. A year here, if you are willing, we can see some miracles. And you can become a straight, hardy, useful tree. As it were, as a twig is bent, so grows the tree. I guess I should have seen this ministry coming. My mother could have seen it coming. As a kid, I picked up every broken bird, every stray dog, every stray cat. I had pet deer. Everything that was hurt, I went and got it. And I'll never forget one time, my mother told a story. I had found this little bird. It just barely had wings on it, feathers on it. And I raised it and fed it and cared for it. And they'll usually die on you, but I got this one all the way up to where I was giving it flight lessons. Okay, I'm mommy now. And I'm like, and I toss it up and go, whoop, and go about 3 feet. And the next day or two, I do it again, just going a little further. We have this big yard, big beautiful yard. All the kids like to play in our yard because it was the best. And about a 4-foot chain link fence. And finally, I tossed it up and it got to the fence. And I'm like, man, my bird's about to. And this is what, a month or two? All of a sudden, I got this little bird, and I'm like, okay, you can do it. He loves me by now, okay? And I throw this bird up, and just as I throw it up, because I know this is going to be his best flight, like, Wright brothers here, whoop! And as I threw it up, a big red-tailed hawk jumped off of a tree. He'd been watching me for days, I guess. And I went, whoo! And here's that law of motion. I'm like trying to grab my bird, because I see him right over here in my neighbor's yard go, and his wings popped up, and here he came. And my bird's flying. And he's like, this isn't funny, Colton. I'm about to tell you a tragic story. Colton's going, yeah, get him. What's wrong with you? And that's what happened. You know the story of the young man. And next thing you know, he got over my chain link fence, because I'm chasing it, right? He got over my chain link fence, getting ready to get in the road, and just before I hit the pavement, that hawk grabbed him, took him in the tree, and ate my bird. What did I bury? I'm crying. I buried 2 little feathers in a coffin in my backyard. That's the beginning of the Master Trench. I have so many of those stories. And then when I got a driver's license, much to my mother's chagrin, I started graduating to adults. And so I'd be driving down the road home from school, and here's this homeless guy with his thumb out, or a work for food guy. That's why I'd pick him up and bring him home. My mother looks out the window one day from the farm, and she's looking out, and here's a guy in our yard taking a leak by the tree. She's like, who is this guy? Oh, I brought him home last night. You don't bring hitchhikers home, they can kill you. This is like 1976 or 77. You with me? I've been doing this my whole life. It's just how I'm wired. Okay? Ask my wife how much money I've given away to street people who probably use it on drugs. I can't help myself. But that's where this started. And then when all of a sudden God says, now I'm going to do this different. We're going to step this up. It's going to be in Missouri. And now, 10 years later, 10 and a half years later, I'm overwhelmed by the blessings, what God's done. It's just beyond my wildest imagination. In fact, when I have visited every school in America that was worth its salt. Okay? Ask my kid, every vacation. We're going on vacation, kids. And then my kids will say, which boarding school are we going to visit? We visit one in Mexico, one in Florida, one in Montana, one in Ohio, one in Louisiana. We went everywhere. We wouldn't look at Pastor Russ and his wife's boarding school in Mexico. We didn't even know who they were. With me? When I was in Tijuana, down in Rosarito. So we take our kids and we go on a vacation. I stop at all the boarding school, see how they did it, what have you. And so when God told me to get mine going down here, I had a lot of history of really looking and praying and wanting to do the thing exactly right. And then God sent me here. And what they told us was, all the other schools says, look, your biggest problem is getting boys. And I'm like, there's an epidemic of kids in America that are going to pot. What? Literally. And they says it'll take you 3 years to get your first 3 boys. You don't have any advertisement. Nobody knows you. Nobody trusts you. It's not going to happen. So I got it in my notes right here. That's why I grabbed this morning. This is in August of 2007. I bought that farm in September of 2007. Okay? We got this 4 or 5 years later. In August of 2007, that month, before I had a place, before I had a website, before anybody knew what I was going to do, this is how I know God was in it. Here's the phone calls I got. Benjamin, 14, New York. Corey, 14, California. Nick, 15, Indiana. Brandon, 13, Pennsylvania. Brandon, 14, California. Michael and Joshua from Maryland. Colton from California. Sean from Wisconsin. A boy in Arizona, I can't remember his name. Eddie from Illinois, 14. Christopher, 16, in New York. Marcus and Marky, I remember them, from Alabama. And that was August. The phone calls that came in saying, please take our kid. I didn't even have a home. We were living in an apartment in Kansas City with 7 boys that had already came, and I don't know how they found us either. So this thing was totally God, totally organic, because there is an epidemic in America. There really is. And you guys are victims of it. Yes, you're purveyors of it because you make bad decisions. You didn't just do drugs, you sold drugs. You didn't just get abused, you abused. You with me? Parent abusers. But let me give you just a few numbers. I would write these on the board, but I save sake of time. Let me give you some numbers. Just try to keep these in your head. Right now, there's 300,000 teenagers in lockup. 25% of all murders in America are now committed by 17-year-olds. I used to work in a maximum security prison. I worked death row. And that was in 1988. My brother Bill and I met. Well, again. And then it was changing from bikers and gangbangers and tough guys to a bunch of punk kids, 17, 18, 19 years old, coming in for murder. I had a 17-year-old kid on my death row for murder. God help us, one of our 17-year-olds that left here early, 5-6 months, is now in prison in Colorado for first-degree murder. 17. What's going on? Now look at this. 13% of all 13-year-old homicides are up 43%. 105, listen to this, 105,000 teenagers will run away. 83,000 girls will become pregnant. 3,250,000 teenagers will use drugs. And 43,000 teenagers will attempt suicide. You see how those yearly statistics? No, they're monthly.
Wow.
Monthly. 43,700 and something odd kids will attempt suicide this month. We only lost 58,000 in all of Vietnam. So Vietnam numbers every month. So let me ask you this. How happy is all that independence, rebellion, and drugs making you? How happy is all that sex doing you? If 83,000 girls get pregnant every month, how many hundreds of thousands of rapes and abortions and abuses and sexual interactions destroying the possibility of marital bliss is happening to get 83,000 pregnancies a month?
Yep.
And how many wicked young men put them in that position?
Yep.
You with me? And so at a record rate, they're killing themselves, they're hanging themselves, they're taking pills, they're taking drugs, they're doing everything they can to check out of this life. Boy, isn't that making you happy? Wasn't that life making you happy? The drugs, the sex, the rock and roll, the rebellion. I just want to do what I want. I don't want my parents telling me what to do. You ever say that? Boy, isn't that making you happy? You're going to live to the ripe old age of 20 before you're so sick of this life you can't wait to check out. I'm getting ready to go visit one of those in just about 20 minutes. As soon as I get out of here, I got a kid I got to run to. It's that close. Second leading cause of death in teenagers after accidents is suicide. Isn't that something? As the twig is bent, Robert Southwell said, tender twigs are bent with ease. Aged trees do break with the bending. Right now, guys, we're trying to help you bend. I know it's hard, 17, 16-year-olds. That's why we got to be hard on you physically, because all I can have is your body when you won't give me your heart. I would not have to be hard on your body if you would give me your heart.
Right.
But you know you got that, and we can't take it from you. But you can offer it. We won't hurt you. I'm not here for money. I'm not here for fame. I'm not here for fortune. I'm here because you're a little bird, and a big red hawk is going to eat you. You ain't the hawk. You're the sparrow. We lost Generation X to sex, drugs, rock and roll. Generation Y, they call it now. That's you guys or whatever. You realize now you were, like Ephesians said, without hope and without God in this world? We now finally have a generation of kids who knows not Joseph, who doesn't know anything about God or the Bible, doesn't know anything about morality, doesn't know right or wrong, don't even know if you're a boy or a girl anymore. Are you kidding me? That's not something you have to think up here for? All you got to do is pull down your pants and you will know. But you live in a country telling you otherwise.
Right.
That's right.
We're here to try to save your life. We're here to reunite you with your family. We're here hopefully that if you come from an unsaved family that you'll take the gospel back home like a big virus and infect your entire home with the goodness of the gospel and the love of Jesus Christ. How many of you guys have families back home that don't know the Lord? They don't know the Lord? They're not Christians yet. Raise your hand. You're not on camera. When I went out to the military, my mama didn't know the Lord. Here she is being grandma. How many of you guys love Grandma Boswell? She a good girl? She like, yeah. Okay, good cop, bad cop. Get that down. Yeah, amen. Ooh. She was pretty tough when I was a kid. You with me? I ain't telling all her war stories, but she wasn't a Christian. She wasn't a Christian. She got saved because she saw something in me that changed her life. You get to do the same thing, son, if you'll take advantage of it. I need you to turn to Deuteronomy chapter 6. I'm going to skip about 2/3 of this. Deuteronomy chapter 6. I want to give you guys, all you boys, you future parents, I'm going to need some help, an illustration in a minute. I'll grab some of you out of the audience to help me show you something since I don't have a dry erase board in front of me. Deuteronomy chapter 5. Deuteronomy chapter 6, both. I got 3 places I want to show you. Why do we do what we do? Well, let me tell you this, it ain't for you. Yes, we love you. Yes, we help you. Yes, we become your friends. And yes, you're the one your mama sent to us. But I have never, as long as I've ever done this, allowed myself to focus on you. My focus, and my older boys will tell you, anybody's been here, to ask Max. My focus is on his kids and his grandkids. Because if I don't get him thinking that way, then this is just another big selfish enterprise where you get to be the center of attention and we get to focus all our money, all our time, all our effort on you, and your parents go broke because you've sucked up all the resources because you can't be good. But if I can get you to think about someone beside you, if I can get you to think about your son that you haven't met yet, if I can get you to think about that kid's son, I now have grandkids through my boy over there. And they know Jesus. Amen. Because I found him. Or he found me. Buddy, my dads were not Christians. I've never had a man in my life until Brother Larry tell me he loved me. Not one time. Wouldn't know what that meant if I heard it. Neither is that guy back there, my buddy Bill. We never heard that. We were neighbors when we were this big. You weren't going to hear I love you from our dads. You get the crap kicked out of you, but you wouldn't hear I love you. I'll try to get my boy to number up the times I've told him I love him. You see, you can change. It isn't the product of your environment. Jesus Christ can change all that. Amen. He can make it all new, all right. A new creature in Christ Jesus. And he did that for me. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 6. Now here, boys, this is your mandate. And in fact, parents, if you're watching this morning, this is not my job at Masters Ranch. This was your parents' job. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Turn with me. This was your parents' responsibility. And I'm not here to blame anybody. You know that there's no such thing as a perfect parent. My poor kid's got problems today because of me. Pray for him. He's going through a tough thing right now. But listen. It is your responsibility to do these verses right here, Mom and Dad. Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 5. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart. Yeah, but what's in it for me? What's he going to do for me? What do I get out of that? What's the other end of the bargain? There is no bargain. You love him. Because he's loving. He says, you love the Lord thy God with all innocence up to you. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. You in verse 6? Say amen, boys. Are you there? Deuteronomy 6:6, ready? And these words, that's this book, which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. So the first thing you got to do is get in this book yourself, put it in your heart. Okay? That was my job. Number 2. And there's a colon there, thou shalt teach them how? Diligently. Over and over and over. And with passion and with intent and with love and with everything you've got. Teach them to your children. See, I don't have kids, I don't want kids. Well then, don't screw around with the girls.
Amen.
Oh wait, you want to play with girls, but you don't want to be responsible in that family. I see. So you're an immoral wretch who doesn't mind destroying lives and leaving fatherless children all over the place so someday when I'm 90 I can raise your kids. Is that right? Send them to Master's Ranch. He says, you shall teach them. You gentlemen, you Max. I've had you, 5 years now? How many times have I told you this? This about your kids? How many? You're on the spot. How many? But it's a bunch. Max came to me when he's 12 years old. He's about to turn 18. Why in the world Brooke likes him, I don't know. But the point is, I've been teaching him since he was a kid. Couldn't even think. You're 12, you're not thinking about having kids. But boy, time flies, and there you sit. A few years away, like 5. Right, Max? 10. But watch this. Thou shalt teach them diligently to thy children, shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, when thou risest up. How many of you guys have been working for Bishop for the last few week or two? You ever seen that Bible far from him? No. It's always right there. So we can talk about it in the way. Everywhere he's going, everything he's doing. You should learn from that. That's where it comes from, right here. Thou shalt write them upon the... Oh, he says in verse number 8, thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. Thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates, and it shall be, when the Lord thy God shall have brought thee into the land which he swore unto thy father... Okay, let's see. I want to find the end of the verse. Hold on. Drop over to chapter 5, verse 29. All right, so boys get saved. They come to Master's Ranch. But listen, just like poor Bryce, when you go home to that same environment, and there's your old buddies down the street, and there's the drugs, and there's the this, and there's the that, man, I feel for you. That's tough. That's real tough. That's like taking a brand new potted plant and just sticking it out there in the winter someplace, sticking it in the dirt and ignoring it. I started this place to try to turn around the tragedy going on in your life and try to partner with parents and grandparents and whoever loves you that sent you here to try to stop the slide, but I don't get to go home with you. I can't go to Houston with you. I wish I could. That's why I don't want you to go to Houston, actually. I'm scared to death. I love you, kid. Talk about an at-risk kid. This kid should be killing people in the gangs right now. That's what he was designed to do by this world. And here he is. I'm scared. Because I don't get to go home with you. Facebook helps me a little bit. I see you slipping and I kick your butt and I say things and you try to hide what you're doing from me because you don't want Pastor to know, but it kills me to see you guys go home. Because now I love you and now you're mine and now you're going back in that old environment and I'm scared you're going to get hurt, you're going to mess up, you're going to lose your life. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 5. But see, you leave here and you say, I'm ready, Pastor. I can do it. Okay, look at Deuteronomy chapter 5. I'm almost through. He says in verse, let's go to verse 28. And the Lord heard the voice of your words. Here you go, boys, adults. When you spake to me, and the Lord said unto me, I have heard the voice of the words of this people. What did they say? Whatever God wants, that's what I'm going to do. That's what they were saying. I get it, God. I'm yours. I will follow you. And you go home with good intentions, and you go home with good plans, and you said all the right words, and God said, I heard your words. You'll have to watch. Look at verse 29. Here's a lament. When you see the letter O, you can't just say O. Okay? O says, oh! That's how that word is said. It's a lament word. I've got a sermon called The O's in the Bible. One of my favorite messages. All the places where God says, oh. That's where God's putting great feeling and guttural pain behind His words. And you know what God says? Oh, that there were a heart in them In other words, God knows that we can't always perform what we say. You're going to say, we work in the prison system. Oh, my soul. Some of you guys are going to go to prison. That's statistically the fact. Some of you are not going to listen. You're going to continue down that road, and you're going to go to jail, and then you're going to learn more, and you're going to get caught up in the system that doesn't love you, and you're going to go to prison. I got 4 or 5 boys in prison right now, which is good for 600 kids, but it's still tragic. Some of you are going to go to prison. That's a fact. You just make sure it's not you. Right? And in prison, they go to the parole board. And at the parole board, they dress up right, and they say all the right things, and I've learned my lessons, and I've paid my debt to society, and they just, and the parole officers are going, oh, that there were a heart of them. Oh, look at that verse 29. Oh, that there were such a heart of them, that they would fear me and keep all my commandments always, that it might be well with them. Why does God want us to be good? For us. It's not to get a bunch of lemmings that look just like Him. It's not to oppress you. It's not to hurt you. It's not to take away your fun. He says, you know what? I want you to fear me and do right so it can go well with you and with your... Look at that verse, Max. Children. When I decided, by the grace of God, to attempt to fear God and follow God, God gave me a promise right there that it would go well for that boy. And if he'll do right, it'll go well for his kids. There's your promise. Where does it start? Is it God? No. It's you having a heart to do what you know is right to do. Last verse. I need to illustrate something to you. Look at Jeremiah 78. When I saw this, and I don't have an original thought in my head. I doubt found any. In fact, I thought, preachers, all you pastors, maybe you have original sermons. I had a sermon once that I just knew. I was the first guy in history of the planet that knew this Bible verse, that got this. I mean, it was all mine. I searched, I looked, I never heard about it from anybody else. I don't think anybody else knew this. And I started preaching this message, and it was one of my favorite messages. And all of a sudden, about 15 years later, I read the exact thought in Oswald Chambers' book, and he knew it before I did. So this is not an original thought, but when it became original to me, it changed my life. Psalm 78. Look there with me, and I'll be done. Didn't I say something? No, sorry. I told you, my mind is spaghetti right now. Psalm 78. And no, I didn't take any of the drugs they told me to take after my surgery, just so I could eat. Psalm 78. When I saw this, it changed my life. And this is the foundation behind why we do what we do. Now, we have a lot of people here now. When I started this, my wife and I, it was just us. We had a guy named Ryan here for a while. I had my boy Ronnie here for a while. But pretty much it was my wife and I, and we got up to about 30 boys in the main house. We didn't have the new building. We had a little stove that had 4 burners that worked. 5 years. We had no heat. We had no air conditioning for 5 years there. We're going to move in there today, and I've never had heat or air conditioning in that house. We just didn't have the money for it. Winters, it got down to 20 degrees in our house. The boys were cold, and I was cold. My wife was cold. Summers were oppressive in there. But we were there, and God gave me these verses, and this is why we do what we do. Now, I say that to say, God has added to our numbers people I have great respect for. I've got older brothers all over this room. They've been in ministry longer than I have. All right? Maybe I've got some little edge on how many boys I've rubbed shoulders with, but honestly, God has sent some premium people to be a part of this. I never expected. My wife and I were going to go help as many kids as we could in Missouri. Did not know what would happen here. That it would ever grow or anybody else would ever care. But I don't know why anyone else came. I'm just going to show you what motivates me. And why I do what I do. For as long as I can do it. Psalm 78. Watch this, boys. Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. So now this is me hearing it from God. I will open my mouth in a parable, David. He's preaching to me. I will utter dark sayings of old. So there's information old timers have had that I'm going to now get in on. He says, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. Now this is where I had to depart, because I didn't have a Christian father. I never had a Bible. My first Bible was given to me by a Sunday school teacher named Ethel Keeble in Starbuck, Washington. She gave me a white Bible, and she invited me to church. They later kicked me out of Sunday school for being too naughty. But, they did. And I took that Bible home, and I set it up on my dresser, and I glued a great big tarantula to it, a rubber tarantula. Some of you guys mess with your Bible, that's why I don't like that. But I glued a tarantula to it, and it just sat there. I didn't read it. It was my Bible, and it had a tarantula on it. I had a live tarantula after that. So I had no fathers telling me nothing. But watch this. He says, so our fathers have told us some sayings of old. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and His strength and His wonderful works that He hath done. For He hath established a testimony in Jacob, appointed a law in Israel. I'm almost done, watch. Which He commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who shall arise and declare them to their children. Why? That they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep His commandments. America doesn't have this anymore. Now, let me show you how this actually plays out. Let's see. All right, so I need, let's see, what age would that be? Let's get, Jake. Let me show you this. All right, I need a grandpa. Come on, Santa Claus. Bishop, would you come with me? We need a grandpa-looking fella. I'm trying to get like him. No shade November. If you'll stand right there, please. Let me show you how this generation thing works. If you will pick up the ball and do right by this thing. Let me have Brother Jake over here. Would you come right here? And bring your baby, if you can. All right, now I need someone in the middle here. Let's go with, let's see what age. I need older than him, Brother Russ. I need about his age right here. Let's have you right here. Now watch these verses, guys, because what dawned on me is how many generations are actually listed in this thing. It isn't 3. It's 5. There's 5 different people in here. Watch what he says here. He says you've got, here's us. He says, our fathers told us. There's Grandpa, right? Now, all of a sudden now, that they might set their hope in God and forget not the works of God, and might not be as their fathers. Wait a minute. Remember I told you I didn't have a Christian dad? So, let's just, did you have a Christian dad? Later on. Not as a child. But notice this. Their fathers. In other words, he heard from, let's say I'm the next one up. He hears from his father so that he's not like their father. So out here is the unsaved dad that started this whole thing.
Right.
You got me? I didn't have a saved dad, no saved grandparents. Okay? My lineage goes back to, you get some of you got pirates in your background. I got Ku Klux Klan on one side. Sorry guys, I've got murders on the other. I'm the first Christian in this lineage. So all of a sudden he says, I don't want you to be like your fathers. I want you to tell your children, who will tell their children, and the ones that should be born, who will declare it to the next generation. Before this thing is done, you look at it, you'll have 5 generations. You're going to have just removed from the lost, the heathen, my parents, mother accepted. Then you got Grandpa, you got his son, his grandson, his great-grandson, and his great-great-grandson, all in Psalm 78. There's 5 generations. The Bible says the sins of the father are visited how far? 2, 3, and sometimes 4. With me? Sometimes 4. That means this little kid's free. Amen? In this illustration, this boy's free from that lineage, that satanic heritage of sin. Some of you, how many of you guys had saved dads? Christian dads? Who had a Christian grandpa? Okay, keep going. Who had a Christian great-grandpa, you think? Anybody know who the great-great-grandpa? See, you guys that have a great grandpa that's saved, your kids are free. And here you are, toying around with becoming like the heathen again and starting this whole mess all over again. By marrying the wrong girl, by getting the wrong kid, by starting off another lineage of sin and starting another 80 years of this mess all over again. Now, let me get hard on you a minute. I heard one of the testimonies, one of my boys, when I came in, they said, a particular boy says, I just don't want you guys telling me what to do. I want to be sinful. I want to go to my drugs. I want to do what I want to do. You're all 14 years of age. What right do you have to wreck your kids?
Amen. That's good.
You say, in my life. Okay then, sterilize yourself, okay?
Right.
Because you don't have a right to make a decision for this guy. And he's affected by him. So now, all of a sudden, he gets saved, he lives for God, and his son does, and his grandson now has access to the Word of God and the truth and the righteousness. And next thing you know, this little guy doesn't have to know nothing about any of this stuff. 5 generations in there, from heathen to safe. Thank you, guys. And you kids who, like me, don't have any Christianity, and you're here going, what are these guys doing? I don't even understand church, and I don't want a Bible. Who was it told me that? Was it you, Liverpool? No. Who was it told me that? It was Cody. Cody told me. He goes, look, I don't read the Bible, Pastor. I know I'm new here, but give me another book. That's what he told me. He got saved about 3 weeks later and became so fired up and passionate.
Amen.
Gentlemen, you don't have a right to make a decision for your kids.
Right.
You don't have that right. If it was just about you, okay, maybe. You know, it's often been said the most selfish thing you can do is kill yourself. A permanent solution to a temporary problem. Right? I know some of you kids have felt that way. I know how it feels. To feel like there's no reason to take one more step and go one more day. It's tragic if you've ever felt that at your age. That's horrible. And I know some of you have. But listen, gentlemen, what's even more selfish than checking out early and breaking our hearts is living like you've been living and wrecking a little child's opportunity to have a real life.
Yep.
Amen.
That's good.
I got a young lady in here right now with a little boy she's worried about. God can stop that. God can give you a fresh start. Stand for prayer. Help yourself. How about surrendering your right to wrecking your life? How about saying, God, what a selfish wretch. As the twig is bent, so grows the tree. I want Master's Ranch 1 and 2 to take one of these plants and put them up somewhere and put that saying on the front in magic marker. As the twig is bent. I just want them setting somewhere. And then you guys take care of them, grow them. Altar's open, gentlemen. That means you come and pray right now. Come on. You got something to fix and you know it. Meet me down here. I'll pray with you. You know you got something to fix. You selfish loud. You don't have a right to wreck your children. Okay, so you inherited a mess. Okay, so your parents drink, cuss, smoke, chew, run what was to do. Your mama was a prostitute. Your daddy's in prison. Okay, I get it. How about thinking about the child you don't have? How about starting this whole thing all over? You be the first of 5 great generations. That's what I tried to do. And I now have grandkids who go to church. Amen. I put a spiker on my Bible. They read theirs. Now, if you're here right now, our heads are bowed, our eyes are closed. Give me that respect for just a minute. Close your eyes, bow your heads. If you know God's tugging on your heart, you got something you should say, something you should pray, and you're still standing there, obstinate, you know it's obstinate. Why? What have you got to lose? That sin wasn't doing anything for you. It wasn't fun. How about it? I love you. I want to help you. Now, if you're here this morning, you say, man, I'm really doing good. I'm saved. I'm trying